Stephen interviews you, discussing topics that matter to you. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, smash the like button, and feel free to share it with others so that they can see it too. And if you're new to this channel, please feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can get updates on what I'm doing for this channel. Thank you all so much for your support. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Stephen Interviews You. This is episode number 33, and I am joined by a very special guest.
Hey, Stephen. I'm Jon Steinbrecher, Commissioner of the Mid-American Conference.
I am so glad to have you on my show here tonight, Dr. Steinbrecher. And let's get right to it. You are the Commissioner of the Mid-American Conference, the MAC. So obviously that comes with a lot of responsibilities, and one of which happens to be related to negotiating media rights deals, such as with TV networks like ESPN, for example. There has been a 13-year media rights extension agreement between the MAC and ESPN for MACtion, and that media deal it ends next year, I believe, 2027. So my question here would be, what goes into negotiating these kinds of deals? Not to be too specific, but what are some general details that need to be ironed out when it comes to negotiating the deals?
Well, there are an array of things. One starts with a simple decision. Are you going to use a consulting group, media group, to assist you in those negotiations? And so you go through a process with that, if in fact you decide to do that. And then there's a lot of talk internally with both your directors of athletics and your presidents on what are we trying to get out of this? And you say, oh, that's easy. You want as much money as you can get. And that is correct. You're trying to increase what you are receiving from the company or companies at which you ultimately contract with. But there are so many other things. It's what are the sports you're trying to get on? What are the details around those sports? What are the promotional efforts that may go into it? What kind of role do you play perhaps in selection of talent? What platforms are you on, both linear and digital? So it's just about anything you can think of could be part of your negotiation.
Yeah. And I asked that question because obviously I have no experience negotiating such deals. So it's just interesting when I hear stuff about, this conference's media rights goes into this year, and there's like, here are the details of it. So I was just wanting to get like more insight as to what's going on with negotiating those kinds of deals.
Well, it's, what you hope for is that you have multiple parties who are interested in you, or that you have something of value that they need, right? And that's
right.
Both sides are looking for some level of leverage in those negotiations. And I'm a firm believer in, you want a deal that works really well for both parties, or at least as much as you can. You want both sides to be satisfied. You want to have people, we want to work with media companies who are responsive to our needs and challenges as we go along through the years. ESPN has who is our current rights holder, and then we have sub-licensing with CBS. Both of them have been very good in working with us and assisting us when we have challenges that come along the way. By the same token, they'll call from time to time and need various things. And that's what you want. You want it to be a partnership.
Yeah. So by extension, there's also a separate agreement with the college football playoff, and this is one of my more interesting questions I'm going to ask. College football playoff, representation in the group of 6 conferences, especially the MAC. What is it like having conversations when it comes to everything involving the CFP? whether it is about the format, the tournament format itself, or the media rights agreement with that?
Well, again, myriad of details. The college football playoff is essentially a partnership between the 10 FBS conferences and Notre Dame, plain and simple. We're the folks that organized it. We hired the staff that manages it and runs it, and so I don't know how many times we meet a year. It seems like a lot. We just had a meeting a couple weeks ago, our normal mid-April meeting, which is kind of the recap of the year. And so you spend a lot of time looking backwards. How did the previous year go? Did the things you put in place work the way you wanted it to? So we're looking at a 12-team playoff. How did it go? Second year of being on campus sites, how did that work? All of those types of things. And then working with our bowl partners, working with our TV partners. And then we've been spending an awful lot of time, and obviously it's been reported in all of the media of, do we stay at 12 or do we expand going forward? This coming year will mark the first year of a new 6-year deal with ESPN. And so it's contracted for 12, but we have the ability to expand if we want to, and there's certain conditions around that. And so we're spending, this past meeting, we probably had the most in-depth discussion we've had on what possible expansion could look like, whether it's 16, whether it's 20, whether it's 24, whether it's beyond that. And again, the myriad of details you get into, first off, you immediately think of what is the value of the event. And so if you're gonna grow the event, you're probably doing it because you want to significantly grow the value of the event. And so there needs to be a lot of study done on that before we get too far down the road with anyone. And then you start thinking about bracketing and where can games go. And that's where it really gets complicated, because meshed into all this is the NFL, the end of the NFL season, and then the NFL playoffs. And so the availability of windows really gets challenging, particularly as you increase the number of games there. And so that really becomes quite a chess game as you're moving around and you're trying to figure out, we need to have X days of rest, and it needs to be equitable, and a whole host of things, right? And then you're talking about, what are we doing in terms of the brand of the event or the marketing of the event? And are there ways to generate revenue that perhaps we haven't thought of yet or implemented yet? Are there things we can do at most particularly the national championship game, but perhaps at other rounds of the event to continue to build, the big event feel? I mean, it's really the second largest sporting event, certainly in the country and arguably in the world, behind the NFL. It's that powerful a brand. And so you're continually questioning yourself on what can we do to continue to grow it and build it and push it even further into the psyche of the sports fans of not only America, but truly the world.
Yeah. So my follow-up to that question involving the college football playoff would be, there has been talk amongst fans and school officials, media outlets, you name it, about participation, representation. And personally, for me, I believe that the group of 6 conferences should be allowed to continue participating in the CFP. But my question would be, with potential expansion of the CFP, do you see, as of right now, that there is still a clear path for the group of 6 conferences to still be allowed to compete in the college football playoff as it is?
Not only allowed, since we're part of the creation of it and the operators of it, I think there's a way for an expanded role in it, but those details have to be worked out. That's we're fairly firm on that conviction, but a lot more talking needs to go into expanding the event. Some of the things about expanding the event, and I get why there are any number of people say we've got to get it to 16, we got to get it to 24, just so we can get more teams in. From where I'm sitting, one of the, I think, unintended consequences that I'm not sure anybody completely predicted as we went from 4 to 12 is what we've done at the upper end of the food chain for the, for the Ohio States, for the Alabamas, for that small grouping of probably 6, 8, 10 schools. If they don't make it into the CFP, that year is a disaster. They can be 10-2, and that year is a disaster for them, which creates enormous pressure. It potentially costs people jobs, right? And so it's not always the healthiest thing in the world, right?
Right.
I think there's some who think if we expand it, we'll let the pressure off. I think the more we expand it, the more pressure we put on it. Look this year what we've done in college basketball. We have teams get into the NCAA tournament and their coaches get released, right? We've got to be really thoughtful. College football has the most valuable regular season in all college sports. We've got to do everything we can to maintain that. And so we need to have meaningful games. Now, putting more teams into the event mean we'll have more meaningful games in November? Maybe. We haven't done enough digging into that to really get our hands around it. But that's part and parcel of what the conversation needs to be around expansion.
Yeah. And following up on that, when it comes to postseason play in general, recently, in recent times, the bowl game that was originally in Detroit, Michigan, last called the Game Above Sports Bowl, it had been dropped from future seasons. So what are your thoughts on college football, the postseason play in general, not just the CFP, but what are you thinking about bowl games and how to keep them both important and relevant? And do you see any sort of experimentation going on, like maybe with how the games are set up, or any rule changes just for fun, or where do you see bowl games going?
Well, you know what? Bowl games are really a wonderful part of the legacy of college football. And it's really only in the past decade or so that they've truly expanded to such a wide number that we have 6 contracted bowl slots, which is just amazing and provide wonderful opportunities. When I first got to the MAC, I think we had 2 contracted bowls. And then I was doing everything was possible to find other slots. That world has changed a bit. As we move forward in the I'll say the new and ever evolving world of college athletics, resources are at a premium, and bowls are expensive. And most of the bowls that we're playing in really don't pay the total freight. And so what can we do to increase the value of those events? Do we need fewer events? And so maybe we drive up the value. Are there ways to do something different? Could we have multiple bowls at a single venue as a way to reduce costs and, again, pump more dollars that come back to us? The so-called group of 6 schools, the non-autonomous FBS conferences, we've been talking for a little while now about, could we not, I won't call it a playoff, but some sort of event, Champions Cup, something where maybe, for the time being, we know we've got at least one champion going on into the CFP. Well, maybe we could take our other 5 champions and maybe the top rated second place team and do some sort of classic, or as I said, Champions Cup. And would that drive more value and bring more revenue back to the conferences, not only to cover the cost of that bowls, but perhaps more that could then be distributed? Those are all things we have to dig into and see if they work. Everybody likes to speculate that it's a no-brainer. Well, none of this is a no-brainer, and it really takes some thoughtful deliberation. Thankfully, we're digging into that. Doesn't mean I'm going to have the answer for you next week, but those wheels are grinding, and I think the right questions are being asked.
Yeah, I am so glad that you mentioned having conversations about maybe a Champions Cup sort of format for the group of six conferences, and that was going to be one of my next questions, believe it or not, because there has been talk. Again, media outlets have been reporting like about the possibility of in the future a group of six conferences getting together for their own postseason tournament kind of play. Uh, would you, Jon Steinbrecher, would you be in favor of that, regardless of what goes on with the college football playoff?
Well, first, we are participants in the college football playoff.
Yes.
That's vitally important. We're part of that peer group. We help create that event, and we intend to be part of it. Now, if we can do some things with the rest of our bowl opportunities that facilitate other valuable events, other valuable games that media companies, our student athletes, and our fans find worthwhile, then all the better.
Yeah. It's been a topic that a lot of college football fans, myself included, have been talking about for a while now. And we do come to this general agreement that it would be something to look into. Definitely have that kind of postseason play. And yeah, I've heard speculation, of course, but I've heard talks about maybe all six conference champions in the future getting together, or some other kind of format. I always, because I can't help it as a fan, I get into that kind of talk where it's like, oh yeah, what would you do? I personally, I would do something like an 8-team tournament, call it a day at that point. But that's just me. That's just me. So. Um, Moving on, specifically to the Mid American Conference. Um, Last year there was a tie, a three-way tie for second place in the standings, and there was like kind of a debate as to what was going on with that, and is something about the tiebreaker policy for the Mid American Conference. Um, how do you guys, when you create something like that, the tiebreaker policy, what goes into not just the planning of it, but when you're implementing it, when you're discussing, okay, this is how we're going to prioritize these metrics.
Yeah, well, these are all policies that are vetted and approved by the membership. And so, in the case of that policy, that was something a year or two ago we had been approved. Uh, you, I can guarantee you, we're having conversations about should we, with that. And it was like the third or fourth. I don't know where it was in the line of on the tiebreak formula, but we're looking at that right now. And should we change that in some form or fashion? My guess is we'll see a tweak to that. That might change it a little bit. Stay tuned and let's see what comes out of our meetings at the end of May.
Yeah, yeah, I do think it is an important a topic to discuss, because no matter which schools were involved with that tiebreaker situation, the event of there like being more than two teams involved in the tie breaking situation, uh, simply because one team did not play another and it was counted against them both. That's definitely part of the tweak that I could see happening.
Yeah.
That's
The,
just my opinion.
the fascinating thing is, I think there were at least three other conferences that had a similar setup in their tiebreak. So
Right.
I guarantee you, all of us are looking at that. The ACC had their own issues with the tiebreaker. I mean, you try to stress test these things as much as possible, but you learn by doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and each conference is different. Each conference is different with how they handle these tiebreaker situations. So it goes with just experimenting on what works, what doesn't. So yeah. So in your time as the commissioner of the MAC, what have been some of the like highlights, best moments of your time being the MAC commissioner, whether it's something that happened on the field or just something that happened in a press conference? This is like more of a for fun question.
Yeah, well, there's an array of things I flash back to, starting with winning a national championship in soccer, Sweet 16 and almost Elite Eight in basketball, two teams into the Sweet 16 in women's basketball. Oh gosh, College World Series in baseball, first Midwestern team in 25 years to make it to the College World Series in baseball. Any number of different non-conference wins in particular, creation of the Bahamas Bowl. And then I think of the student athletes I've interacted with and the things we've done. I think our league in particular has been exceptionally interactive with our student athletes. We've tried to empower them and make them part of the process. We were the first conference to make our student athletes part of our governance system, and they've been incredibly helpful. We were the first conference to initiate a conference-wide mental health program, and that goes back, oh gosh, probably 14, 15 years. And the idea really first came out of our student athletes, and boom, we went from there. Our student athletes have written multiple white papers for Congress to review and think about these issues that are being debated in Congress right now. The rules we have on so-called time demands, how many hours a week they can practice, all those types of things. That really came out of our student athletes, because we asked our student athletes for feedback about that before there were NCAA rules. They wrote a wonderful white paper. We took it, implemented their recommendations, and shared it with the NCAA. Within a year, they were taking that as the framework. And again, that became part and parcel of that. So there's, every year you could inevitably point to something we did. The TV contract we're in right now, we took a contract that had grown the exposure opportunities, but the revenue was not very good. We grew at 1,000%. No one does that, right? So right. You hope now the next one, we're probably not going to grow 1,000%, but we're hoping to see continued growth in that as we continue to look for ways to generate more revenue, to pour back to our institutions, to help them to underwrite their operations and supporting their student athletes.
Yeah. So speaking of student athletes and about revenue, there is another conference that has implemented this. I believe it's called the Minimal Investment Rule. And I believe the American Conference has done that. Tim Pernetti, his conference. And I think the rule goes like, there's like the schools have to be willing to share revenue of around $10 million with student athletes. I hope I'm right about that.
It's basically, and it's over a 3-year period of time.
Right.
And it's programmatic, and it includes things such as Alston payments, cost of attendance, additional benefits /NIL, things like that. Conference USA has in the past year implemented something similarly. We're starting to have conversations around that. Okay. And we're trying to study, what have they done? Has it worked or not? Right.
Right.
What you want to make sure you're doing is making wise investments in whatever you do. And so, the American had a basketball program, a very prominent basketball program, spend a lot of money this year on their men's basketball roster. They weren't very good. And so you think of it almost as chicken and the egg. There needs to be some level of investment. What is that investment? I think for us, I want to frame it around priorities. What are our priorities as a conference? We're an FBS conference, so football should probably be pretty important to us. If you're playing in Division I, basketball is going to be pretty important to you. And then all of our schools have other sports that are important to them. So how can we craft a set of priorities and come up with these are our priorities and these are our responsibilities to each other as we try to lift everybody up. And then how do we hold ourselves accountable to that? That's the right conversation. I don't know where it will go, but I feel good about it. And again, we've done a lot of really good things. 2 teams in the men's basketball this past year. Football, you know what? You always want to win more, but I think we had 7 losses in non-conference games that came by a score or less, and 5 were like on the last possession. So you're right there. You still have to get it done. You don't get credit for close, right? But we're in those things, and every one of our athletic administrators, every one of our coaches will say, "I want more resources." Understand that. Presidents have a challenging job of managing the entire enterprise, and the ADs have a lot of pressure on them to generate resources to underwrite all these things. So what can we do that makes sense? One of the things that's interesting about our league is we have the smallest difference between the lowest expense budget and the highest expense budget. The result of that is really, really robust conference competition. It's while it does occur in certain sports, it's more typical that you see a lot of teams competing for all the different championships with some regularity. Now, in certain sports, it seems like there's always 2 or 3 teams that always seem to be somewhere near the top, and then other teams are coming in and out. What makes our league, I think, so interesting, and why our coaches and administrators are often so sought after, is if you can come into the Mid-American Conference and you can win, you can be successful. It's not because you've out-resourced somebody. It's because you're the total package. If you're a coach, you know how to put together a staff of really talented assistants. You know how to recruit and train motivated student athletes. You know how to X and O. You know how to do all those things and really build a fine program. As opposed to there are any number of programs that win largely because they're just flat out resourcing folks. That doesn't occur necessarily in this league, and that's okay.
Yeah. So that was definitely very very insightful for me, because I've been hearing about this minimal investment rule for a while now, and so just a quick question about that. Do you see the Mid-American Conference down the road in the future trying to implement some sort of variant of that minimal investment rule?
We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that. I know
Right.
we'll have conversations around what are our obligations to each other, what are our goals, and what do we need to do to achieve those goals. Is that setting some sort of minimum? Is it incentivizing performance? Is it something else? Right? There's a lot of ways to skin a cat. We all tend to copy whatever the new thing is, which isn't to say what other people are doing isn't right for them. We'll figure out if it's right for us. What's important is that we come into agreement of what it is we're trying to do, and then let's set our sails on that and get it, and let's go and achieve it.
Yeah. So another for fun question I'm going to ask. It has everything to do with the Jolly Roger flag. That is a campaign that you guys started some years ago. The Jolly Roger flag. I see it at times when a MAC team upsets another team, any sport. What? It's kind of a two-parter here. Who exactly was the first one to bring that idea up? And secondly, what got the engine started, so to speak, when it came to that campaign?
I started that, may have been my first year with the conference. So that goes back a while now. And we were doing it internally, and I was doing it solely as a way to rally ourselves together. That in non-conference games, particularly against autonomy schools, hey, if one of us wins, we all win. That rising tide is going to lift all boats. And I kind of took the philosophy of where we're the pirates of then it was then the BCS. Now we're the pirates of the CFP. Our ships maybe aren't the shiniest or the biggest, but man, we've got a chip on our shoulder, and we're proud, and we're going to come at you. And so I started just internally. If you want a game like that, we created a flag, and then I started emailing it to the coach, the AD, and the president. And then after a couple of years, I said, hey, I'm going to give everybody a flag, and we're going to talk about it publicly. And I think it's something that's resonated, and we have some fun with it, right? This is sports, right? Let's have some fun around this, and let's have some fun and rally around each other. We're going to fight like dogs and cats among ourselves, but by God, nobody on the outside better pick on us, or we're all going to come for you.
Yeah. So to wrap up this interview, and I'm going to finish it on another for fun note. You were both a graduate at Valparaiso and, of course, Ohio University in the 80s. What was your experiences like in both of those universities? And what was it exactly that, in both those universities, what was it exactly that prepared you for what you are doing these days today?
That's a good question. Well, Valparaiso University was a great experience for me, and it's a place I had always wanted to go. I was born in Valparaiso. My dad coached and taught there. And then we moved away when I was entering fourth grade, and we're at Appalachian State in North Carolina. As I was graduating from high school, my father got hired to go back to Valparaiso as the director of athletics. And so afforded me the opportunity to go there, which I probably wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And so I went there. I played football. I played tennis. I had a work study job. I volunteered and did everything I could in the athletic department. It's really where I never knew about athletics administration before that. I said, wow, how can you go be an athletic director? And so it really changed my career focus. And I was fortunate, had some professors who would help me and say, let's find out how you could do that. And what we discovered is that you could go to graduate school and study it. Well, today, everybody has a graduate program. Back then, there were 3 graduate programs in the country: Ohio University's, which was the oldest, University of Massachusetts Amherst, and Western Illinois University. So I applied to all, ultimately was admitted to all. I really wanted to go to Ohio because it was the oldest and was really so well thought of. And actually, I had great choices. All 3 of those programs are phenomenal programs. UMass program has developed into, also another just awesome program. And it's neat that both of them are here in the Mid-American Conference. So then I go off to Ohio, do my master's there, had a chance to work with their director of athletics and do some special projects for him. Was a great learning experience. Went on and did a internship at Davidson College. Had my hands in everything, which was great. And then I wanted to kind of further differentiate myself. And so I went to Indiana University to work on my doctorate, which again was another great experience because it gave me a chance to kind of measure up the theoretical with what you actually do in practice. Had a teaching assistantship, had an assistantship in the athletic department. It was a really energizing and dynamic time in my life to really think about what's going on in this profession and what do I want to do. And then ultimately, I always wanted to be a director of athletics, but I ended up in the conference world. And as it turns out, that's really been a marvelous journey for me. And I'm so thankful. I've worked with 3 great conferences. I've worked with so many wonderful presidents and directors of athletics and coaches, and have such admiration for the jobs they do and the challenges they face. And, it's my mission every day to get up, and hopefully we in the conference office can do things to help them do their jobs more effectively as they go out and meet the challenges they're dealing with individually.
Yeah. Well, with that, we are going to wrap this interview up. MAC Commissioner Jon Steinbrecher, it has been an honor for me to spend time with you and ask some challenging questions, but some fun questions as well. And thank you so much, Jon, for discussing topics that matter to you. And thank you guys for watching. Take care, guys.